What's up YouTube, this is your boy SA Random, and in today's video I'm going to discuss my top 10 smartphones that I have ever owned. So in all my years of buying smartphones, I've had approximately 48 smartphones in total, which is quite a lot in my opinion. But I do love my technology, and I do love having the new latest phone. So every 6 months or after a year, I'll just swap them out. So out of all of them, these are my top 10 that I have ever owned that stuck out to me the most. Sorry, that was my dash cam. I am sat in my car. Anyways, my first one was LG Snap. That came out in 2010. I'll leave the spec up on the screen now, but this was the first true smartphone I ever owned in 2010. And I had that all the way up to 2013. So I did have a good 3 years almost. Yeah, so I'll just do the specs. It came out 2010. It had a 3-inch display. It was a TFT panel, and the resolution was 240 by 400. So comparing today's smartphone, that's nothing. That's literally nothing. Memory wise, it has 60 MB internal storage, and SD card. Think about today's phones. If I take a picture on my current phone, 60 MB will be filled up straight away. On the back, it had a 5 megapixel camera, no selfie camera, loudspeakers, your normal function. Battery was a 900 milliamps, but it lasted a long time than 900 milliamps. And yeah, that was my very first smartphone. Now, going to 2013, I believe it was, when I got my next smartphone, which was an iPhone. And it was an iPhone 4S. Surprisingly, my first Apple phone. Not my last, but my first. So this was the iPhone 4S. Now, when this came out, this was everywhere on YouTube, everywhere on the news, like the brand new iPhone 4S with Siri. That's what I remember the most about it. That's why I got it. Yes, I got it like a couple years later, but I found it cheap. I found a really good deal on it, and I bought it. So going through these specs, it had a front and black glass with aluminium frame, which like today's time is the premium standard. Before it's all plastic covers, but iPhone set the premium standards of that phone. It had an IPS display. It had a 3.5-inch display. Resolution still by today's standard not that good. It was 640 by 960 resolution, 330 pixel per inch. The reason they had this resolution, I remember this watching a YouTube video. Steve Jobs quoted that the eyes cannot see past 400 pixel per inch, so we don't need higher resolution display. Don't quote me on that, but I'm sure he said that. Okay, so talking about the chipset, it had the Apple A5 chipset, dual core 1 GHz, no memory card slot because for some reason Apple will not add it. So you had a choice. You had an 8 GB, 16 GB, 32 GB or 64 GB. Now I had the 16 GB model, and all came with 512 MB RAM. Today's standard, I can't get my words up. In today's standard, that would not be enough. Minimum you need 6 GB or 8 GB minimum for a smartphone. Most smartphones now the high end one have 10 GB, 12 GB of RAM. Main camera was 8 megapixel. It did have a selfie camera, but it was a VGA camera, so the resolution was not that quite good. Battery wise, 1432. So yeah, like I said, it was my first iPhone, but then I had a 6S, but after 6S I didn't like it. So number 3, it was the Sony Xperia Z2. Now this was like my first, like I say, proper Android phone I ever owned, like one of the first. It's been that long, I can't remember which was my first Android phone, but I remember like this specifically because it was waterproof, not water resistant, waterproof. These were the first smartphone that waterproof, and I just love Sony build, the quality of the build, the design of it. Back then they made really good phones, now they're not. So back then it released in 2014, so I bought it. It had IP58 dustproof and water resistant. They say water resistant, but it's more like waterproof. It literally was waterproof. I literally did put it inside water and took it out. The phone was amazing. It had an IPS display, 5.2 inches, 1080 display with a resolution of 424. It had shatterproof glass. Then it had Sony's, like, I can't even say the name. I'll put the specs up on the screen. An X Reality engine. It had Android 4.4.2, so KitKat. It had a Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 quad-core processor at 2.3 GHz. Obviously micro SD card, 16 GB with 3 GB of RAM. At the back it had one camera, which is 20.7 megapixel camera. At the front it had a 2.2 megapixel camera. The battery was 3200 milliamp, and this was the phone with had fast charging as well. The reason this phone stood out to me is just because of I just love the design of Sony phones back then, the build quality. I had the Z2, Z3 and the Z5 Premium. After that, Sony build quality of phone was not that great, but I love the Z series back then. Next up, so we are number 8 now. Number 7. So now we're on to the LG G5. The reason this phone stood out to me because I love LG phone as well. I had the G2, the G3, G4, and the G5. So I did love LG phones back then as well. And what this stood out to me was the fact that you're able to remove the battery. Most smartphones then you couldn't, they were built in. There's no way to remove it. Plus with this one you're able to remove it, put in the battery, when you put another battery in and keep going, which I really loved. So this phone came out in 2016. It had the IPS display, 5.3 inches, 1440 by 2560. It was running Marshmallow. It had a Snapdragon 820 quad-core processor. So two of the processors was running at 2.15 gigahertz. The other two are 1.6 gigahertz. It had a micro SD card slot. It had a 32 GB of storage, 4 gigs of RAM. Yeah, this had two cameras on the back. One a 16 megapixel wide and one 8 megapixel normal camera. On the front it had the 8 megapixel selfie camera. And battery wise it had a 2800 milliamp battery with fast charge. But the fact is you're able to swap the battery. Also the bottom compartment you can add accessories on it as well, which I thought really stood out to me back then. Now we're up to number 6, which was the S7 Edge. Now the reason why this stood out to me, like I was buying a lot of Samsung phone as well. Now I did love the S6, but it wasn't refined enough for me. When S7 came out, it's more like a refined version of the S6 Edge. So again, that came out 2016. 5.5 inch, but with Super AMOLED display. So that display was like the best display of all times. So it was a 5.5 inch display, 1440 by 2560, 534 pixel per inch, running Marshmallow. Obviously with Samsung, they offer two chipsets, the Snapdragon for the rest of the world and the Exynos version for the European market. So I got the Exynos version, which had an octa-core processor, so 4 cores running at 2.3 GHz, and the other 4 running 1.6 GHz. With a Qualcomm, it had quad-core processor, so 2 of the cores running at 2.15 GHz and the other 2 running at 1.6 GHz. It did have expansion. It did have micro SD card slot, 32 GB of storage, 64 GB of storage or 128 GB of storage, all with 4 gigs of RAM. On the back it had one camera, 12 megapixel. On the front it had a 5 megapixel selfie, and for battery it also had the fingerprint sensor as well at the front, the home button. And for battery it had a 3600 non-removable battery with 15-watt fast charge. Next up was my first Note phone. This one was my very first Note phone. It was the Samsung Galaxy Note 2. Now the Note 1 came out. I didn't pay not too much attention to it, but the second Note came out, which I really loved. I just loved it. It was something different, something new. So that came out 2012 August. It had a 5.5 inch display, 720 resolution, so 267. But back then in 2012, 5.5 inch was a big display back then in 2012. Obviously I bought this phone like much later on, but I really wanted a Note phone, and this was like the cheapest one. I think at that time either Note 3 or Note 4 came out, but I just wanted a Note phone, so I just picked this up. We had a micro SD card slot. It has 16 GB, 32 GB, 64 GB of storage with 2 GB of RAM. Main 8 megapixel, selfie 1.9 megapixel, 3100 milliamp battery, no fast charge. But the fact that it came with S Pen as well, what Samsung did there was something different, something amazing. And up to now, I'm using the Note 20 Ultra. I love my Note phones. Since the Note 2, I always tried to have all the Note phones. I know I had the Note 3, Note 4, Note 5, the Note 7, the Note 8, the Note 9, the Note 10, and the Note 20 Ultra. Just because I love the Note phones, Note series. Okay, my next phone is the P20 Pro, Huawei P20 Pro. Now this phone, the story behind it. So first of all, let me go through the specs. So it came out 2018. Yeah, the front had a front glass and back glass design with aluminium frame. It was IP67, so dust and water resistance. It had an OLED display, 6.1 inches, which was big. But by the time this phone came out, 6.1 inches was like the normal size. Thinking about 2012, 5.5 inches was the biggest phone, and people was calling like that a tablet size. But now in 2018, 6.1 inches was like the new normal, which is crazy to think. That had a 1080 by 2044 resolution with 408 pixels per inch. Yes, a 1080, but I didn't mind it too much. Really, at that point, I couldn't really tell the difference. There was a slight difference because I missed my 2K display, but really, it didn't make that much difference. It came with Android Audio. It came with the Krillin 970 processor, so octa-core processor. So 4 cores running at 2.4 GHz and 4 cores running at 1.8 GHz. No micro SD card slot, so you had many options. So you had a 64 GB, 112 GB, both running at 6 gigs of RAM. You had another 128 GB running at 8 gigs of RAM, and then 256 GB, either 6 gigs of RAM or 8 gigs of RAM. Main camera was a 40 megapixel wide camera, 8 megapixel telephoto camera with 3 times optical zoom. So the macro shots after the phone was insane. Literally, I took a picture of a coin and you can see all the details on the coin, which was amazing. That's why I got the phone, just purely on the camera basis. It was just amazing, and for the price point, I thought this phone was just a bargain. The front was a 34 megapixel camera, and then the battery was a 4000 non-removable battery, but it had fast charging at 22.5 watts, so 58% in 30 minutes, which was crazy. So now we're on to the Note 7. Yes, the Note 7, the famous Note 7 that was set on fire by itself because of battery issue. Now I got a story behind this phone. So I got this phone when it was newly released. And let me just go for the specs first. So it came out 2016. It had a front and back glass design, IP68 dust and water resistant, Super AMOLED HDR10 display, 5.7 inch, 1440 by 2560, 518 pixel per inch. It's running Android Marshmallow. It already came with Samsung Exynos 8890 chipset. So octa-core, so 8 cores in total. 4 cores are 2.3, the other 4 are 1.6. It had a micro SD card slot, 64 GB of storage, 4 GB of RAM. It had one camera, 12 megapixel wide, and a selfie camera. It had 2 selfie cameras. So one was a normal selfie camera for 5 megapixel. Other one was the iris scanner. So literally this phone, to unlock the phone, it uses your eyes. Able to use your fingerprint, but it was using your eyes as well just to unlock the phone, which I thought that feature was amazing. Literally, if I could not use my hand because I'm wearing gloves, just swipe the phone, unlocks it with my eyes, which I wish Samsung brings back now. I missed that feature. Then it had 3500 non-removable battery. Now the story goes with this phone. I bought this phone from Carphone Warehouse, pre-order. Now it was getting delivered by DPD. Now I was home waiting for the delivery. I seen the driver outside, but it turned into a different street. I thought, okay, it might be dropping a delivery often in the house. They go to my house. So waiting. Get a notification. Your parcel has been delivered and signed for. I thought, hang on a minute. You didn't came to my door even. So how did I sign for it? Then he went off. I was like, what the hell's going on? Then I found out which depot he came from. Luckily, it was close by. It wasn't far. So I went to the depot. I spoke to the depot manager. I go, listen, mate. It says my phone has been delivered and it's not been delivered. What's going on, mate? I seen the driver. I asked him, listen, where's my phone? He basically said this. Some person knocked on my van, said my name, said, oh, I live at this address. And he gave it him without thinking. I looked at him, like, listen, mate, either you're trying bollocks and you nicked my phone, or that actually did happen. I don't know. I spoke to the service manager. I go, listen, mate, how can you do that? That must get some like term and condition. You cannot give a random stranger my password without come to my house and knock on my door physically. No way. So either you drag my phone or you give it to a random stranger. Now what are we gonna do? He goes, oh, I'm sorry. I will make a complaint. I think in my head, you're not going to do nothing. So I was speaking back to Carphone Warehouse DPD, back and forth, ringing them every single day until the issue gets sorted. 1 week later, Carphone Warehouse messaged me. They said, we're sorry for this. We can see that the van was parked away from your house on a different street, and this should never happen. We are so sorry. We have blacklisted the current phone, and we will ship you a replacement. I thought, yes, same color, same gig, same everything. I got the phone. 1 week later, some people decided to make a recall. I thought, WTF at that point. I had this phone for a week. I have to give it back already. So I give it back, and they just give me S7H at that time. I feel like it was good while it lasted. So yeah, that's the story behind that phone. Now we're on the top 2 smartphones I ever owned. So number 2 is S10 Plus. Why? Because after the SA, had the SA, didn't like it. Had the S9, I never had the S9, wasn't interested. When the S10 came out with the 2 front cameras and 3 back cameras, for like, you know what, this is the phone. This is the phone. So this phone came out in 2019. Had the fronted glass back design. Had a dual SIM with micro SD card. Was IP68 dust and water resistant. Had dynamic AMOLED HDR10 Plus display. 6.4 inches. 4040 by 3040. 522 pixels per inch. It was running Android Pie at that time. Upgrade to Android 11 and Samsung One UI 3.0. I had the 2 chipsets, the Exynos or the Qualcomm. I had the Exynos version. So the Exynos was running at octa-core processor 2.73 GHz, And the other, wait, hang on a minute. So wait, okay, the Exynos 9820 had 8 cores. 2 cores were running at 2.73, another 2.31, and the last 4 was 1.95 gigahertz. The Snapdragon version, which was the 8055 7nm chip, was also running octa-core. One processor, one core was running at 2.84. 3 other cores were running at 2.42 gigahertz, and another 4 was running at 1.78 gigahertz. That's why it says on MSD now, okay? Then it has a micro SD card slot. We do say 128 GB at 8 gigs of RAM, 512 GB at 8 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte storage at 12 gigs of RAM. Obviously, I have the 128 GB at 8 gigs of RAM, so that's more than enough for me. On the back, you had 12 megapixel wide, 12 megapixel telephoto, and 60 megapixel ultra wide. Like, that was the best 3 setup cameras I ever had in my life. Up to that point, any smartphone before that, yes, but for me, that was the best smartphone. And this was the longest smartphone I ever had. Normally, I have my smartphones like maximum a year. This one, I had it almost a year and a half ago. I loved it so much, and I could not replace it. Then the front camera was a 10 megapixel selfie camera, 8 megapixel wide camera. Then it had 4100 milliamp non-removable battery, 50 watt fast charge. Whew! Now we are number one, and that is the Note 20 Ultra. By God, this is the best phone I ever owned in my life. I honestly mean it. Like, just the camera alone is insane. Just the camera alone are insane. So this phone came out in 2020. Obviously, front and back glass design. Dual SIM with hybrid with micro SD card slot. IP68, doesn't water resistant. It has an S Pen. Dynamic OLED display at 120Hz HDR10 Plus. Just that alone made me fall for the phone. So it's running at 4040 at 3088 pixel resolution. 496 pixel per inch. It does has 128 Hz display, but it only runs at full HD. But there is a rare one around it where you can close to 2K display and run it at 128. No, okay, let me get my wording right. You could run it at 120 Hz, close to 2K resolution. There is a way, and I might upload a video explaining this. Okay, so for cameras, you have 108 megapixel main camera, 108, 12 megapixel periscope camera. So what that is, it has a 5 times optical zoom, and the rest is digital zoom. So in total, 50 times hybrid zoom. You can literally take a picture of the moon and can see the details, which is crazy for any smartphones. Then it has a 12 megapixel ultra camera. For selfie, it has a 10 megapixel wide camera. And for battery, and it does have a figure on the display fingerprint sensor. For battery, it has a 4500 non-removable battery with 25 watt fast charging. And the other thing is that the camera on the phone is just so amazing. I will leave photos on the screen now of the moon. I've taken so many pictures of the moon with this phone, and I'm just amazed. I'm mind blown of the detail from a phone. Like, it's just shocking to me how technology has advanced so quickly in so little time. Like 5 years ago, even 2-3 years ago, it was unheard of. You couldn't even take a picture of the moon clearly, but now you can. And that's why the Note 20 Ultra is my number one phone to date. So anyways, this has been your boy SA Random. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and see you next time.